All right, everybody, welcome into episode 122 here on March the 20th, 2024. Boys and girls, it's March Madness time here in America. I'm Nick Phillips, as always, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gus Tomazeli. Gus, are you feeling the madness?
Yeah, I'm feeling the madness because it's almost the end of the regular season for Rio Branco. We had a tremendous week that was kind of very down to the wire. And oh, by the way, happy spring for you guys in America. Happy autumn for us in Brazil. Even though it's grilling hot this week, it's been like almost in the 90s to like mid 90s to almost 100.
Not looking
But
forward to that. It's
yeah,
perfect weather right now here in the Chattanooga area. It's been like 60s, 70s, just absolutely gorgeous.
I
Speaking of March
imagine.
Madness, we do have some games that are on right now. The one lone tournament game that's on is the Battle of 216 seeds. Montana State leads Grambling. It's 53-47 right now. Additionally, we got some NIT going on. St. Joseph's leading Seton Hall. Um, but obviously, that is the talk of American sports. It is the one week a year, honestly, where football isn't the biggest sports talk. Because I feel like at this point in American society, the majority of the weeks of the year, football is the main sport of conversation. But this is the one time of year where football gets dethroned a little bit, where it's time to talk some basketball.
Oh
And
yeah, especially college one because as you talked, it's March Madness. It's win or go home.
yes, it is win or go home indeed. And of course, Sunday we got our brackets for both the men and the women. Honestly, I'm still used to the idea of the women's brackets coming out on Monday, but I was pleasantly surprised when they came out an hour after the men. So I was able to go through and start picking games on both. Um, Gus, I don't know, have you gotten a chance to pick a bracket?
Oh, unfortunately, this year I'll pass. Has been so busy for me in terms of here and kind of like working with Rio Branco, and especially like normally we did the show picking the bracket and I couldn't this year, but definitely we can go through the brackets. Even though they're probably only one game, which is Montana State 53, Grambling State 47 at the half, but we can go through it definitely. And I see that you already have pull in.
Absolutely, and we can just go through and pick it together. Like, because why not? Like, why right here? This could be effectively your pseudo bracket for me. We can just kind of go through and just kind of see what we are seeing here. So we're starting here in the East. Connecticut's the number one overall seed. In my mind, they're currently, I think, the best team heading into this tournament, and they're taking on Stetson, 16 seed. I did say they put up over 90 points in their conference title game. I would be stunned if Stetson won this game.
So there's not going to be another UMBC.
I don't believe so here. I firmly believe Connecticut. Um, so you want
Yeah,
we go?
yeah. I admit you. I'll pick UConn to go further. Yeah, one thing that is interesting is that it's so weird to see the men's basketball team from the University of Connecticut be so dominant. Normally, is the Gino Ariema team from the women's side that's been so dominant. The last decade, beginning of this decade, but now is the men's team that is dominating over in Connecticut.
Oh, absolutely. It's and the women's team. We'll get to their bracket here in a little bit. They've got a little bit of work to do to try to reclaim their dominance, as well as maybe a team that we root for to reclaim their dominance as well. Um, so to play Connecticut in the second round, you'll have the 8 seed Florida Atlantic Owls. Of course, that team went to the Final Four last year, lost in a heartbreaker to San Diego State. And then we have Northwestern from the Big Ten. This is an interesting game. You know, I don't really know which way to go here.
And it's interesting if you go down a little bit, you can see. I think this is the hardest bracket because you have two teams. Go up a little. Go up. Like only this. Let's stay with this bracket. The 8 teams now. You have the number one seed, two teams that went to the Final Four last year, and the current SEC tournament champion. So I think that's the hardest kind of bracket in terms of matchups. Going through the round of 64 and 32 to get the Sweet 16.
Absolutely, and I think you have some dangerous teams here, like UAB. I think it's dangerous. I mean, they've pulled off some upsets in the past. Northwestern, of course, they're a solid team. I mean, they're in their best run in program history. Let's pick some games. Who do you think wins this one? FAU, Northwestern.
I'll pick FAU.
Mm-hmm. What about the San Diego State UAB?
San Diego State.
Mm-hmm. Any chance Yale can take out Auburn?
No, I don't see Bruce Pearl's team losing for
Mm-hmm.
at least this round.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, looking at the bottom half too, I think BYU is a very dangerous team right here at the 6th seed. They've been in the top 20 of KenPom all year. They're taking on Duquesne, who won the A10. This is their first tournament appearance in 45 years. So, huge day for Duquesne. But I watched a bit of their conference championship game. They didn't score for like 6 minutes. Just horrible. So I think BYU is going to win that game.
Yeah, I'll go BYU.
Mm-hmm. We have Illinois. Of course, I saw Illinois play in person against Tennessee earlier this year. Very solid team. They're coming off the Big Ten championship. They're taking on Morehead State. Illinois had some trouble. I remember Chattanooga almost beat them a few years ago. I don't see it here, personally.
I go Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is where my personal opinion thinks to get kind of chaotic here. So we have 7 Washington State, one of 3 Pac-12 teams that made the tournament. And it's the last dance as the Pac-12. Think about that. I mean, I was watching the Pac-12 title game between Colorado and Oregon. Actually, the Pac-12 has 4 teams, I think, in the tournament. It's last dance.
It's so funny. Kind of now, we talked about when Washington lost in the national championship and it was the last dance for the Pac-12. I guess it was only in football because I guess now with the NCAA basketball tournament, now they're gonna say goodbye because when the NCAA basketball tournament ends, then the sports year kind of ended. The 2023 2024, like they started in August with football and I guess ended in June with baseball. I guess you can see that.
Yeah, baseball will be the last dance. I mean, they could win the softball championship. I mean, Pac-12 is normally pretty good in softball.
Yeah.
It was just surreal watching the last basketball championship for the Pac-12. It feels wrong. And a shout out to Laura Colby Nelson saying, "Time to listen."
Oh,
Thank
thank
you,
you, Laura.
Keep on listening. We'll keep you entertained. So we got Washington State, a very good team. They beat Arizona twice this year. This is one of the main reasons why they have such a high seed. Taking on a Drake team that won the Missouri Valley Conference, they upset Indiana State and kept them out of the tournament, which I thought was a shame. Indiana State should have been in over another team that I will talk about when we get further down the bracket. Honestly, though, I picked Drake in my bracket.
Yeah, me too. I'll go Drake.
Mm-hmm. Not the rapper.
Yeah.
Number 2 Iowa State versus 15-seeded South Dakota State. Now, Iowa State has an elite defense. They're top 10 in metrics when it comes to teams across the country. Now, offensively, they do lag a little bit, but they just beat Houston by 30 points on Saturday. Meanwhile, South Dakota State benefited from an upset in their conference championship to get that bid. So do you think the Cyclones take care of that?
I'll go Iowa State.
Mm-hmm. So only a Drake here in this round. Of course, this would be an all Iowa matchup here because Drake is in Des Moines, while Iowa State's in Ames. So literally a county apart in Iowa. That would be a very interesting game. So over to the West. And, this is the spot that Tennessee was fighting for, of course. We'll talk about them when we get to them, but we kind of threw away our chance at a 1 seed, unfortunately, over the past week. And North Carolina took advantage, getting that last 1 seed. However, they are in the West, so in the long term, we'll have to wait and see whether or not they will, whether that will be beneficial for the Vols. Laura says, Drake, in Iowa was a customer of mine back in my working days. And my dad was an Iowa State grad. I know he's going to
Oh,
be rooting on it.
so I guess she has a school to root for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hey, they got some competition, right? Because I'm sure the Iowa State men will love to outshine Caitlin Clark and the Iowa women for sure. Because obviously they're going to hog up a lot of the attention, I think, throughout this March Madness season. Um, but in any case, do you any chance Wagner, who beat Howard last night to get the spot, any chance they pull off an upset against UNC?
No, no, I don't see it.
Now, this game is very interesting to me. So, Mississippi State coming off of just a thrashing of Tennessee on Friday. They fought hard against Auburn Saturday, came up just a little bit short, but that was able to land them the 8th seed. And a Michigan State team that, honestly, I don't know if they really deserve to be here in the tournament, let alone be a 9 seed. They only won 19 games this year. But Tom Izzo has a way of showing up in March.
Yeah, it's kind of like the coaches that transcend the, he is, and his reaction. You saw his reaction. It was very interesting to see his reaction. But I think that's the kind of the most even matchup for this round of 64. And I'll take Michigan State on the wire. I think Mississippi State can give some trouble to Tom Izzo's team.
Yeah, I will not be shocked whoever wins that game. I think it'll be a low scoring, physical. I honestly think Miss State's a better team. We'll just see if the matchups work out because for Tennessee they match up with us perfectly. Unfortunately for us. Now we have St. Mary's here, the 5th seed. They won the West Coast Conference over Gonzaga, and they are facing the 12th seeded Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon notoriously is one of the best home court environments. What do you think about this here? It's kind of an unusual 12-5, I feel like.
Yeah, it's Grand Canyon is the kind of school that is very in basketball because you don't hear in other sports. But I'll go with St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were in contention for the regular season title. They're taking on Charleston, a team that's really good. Alabama, they're known for a high-scoring offense, not great defense. Do we think Charleston has any shot to take out the Tide?
I get. I think it's not going to be a lopsided matchup, but I think Alabama can take care of business.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say this. This might be the most misseeded game of this entire tournament right here. New Mexico won the Mountain West Conference tournament, and they were only granted an 11th seed. I think they should have been at least an 8. Clemson might be the opposite. They might be overseeded. They might have been should have been like an 8 or a 9. Because Clemson is okay, but they kind of started by in a weak ACC this year. They did beat Alabama on the road, but still, I'm not blown away by Clemson. I personally picked New Mexico to win this game.
I'll go New Mexico too. I think it's going to be an upset.
Mm-hmm. Now, our favorites, Colgate, aka toothpaste. Remember Tennessee played them a few years ago and gave us a scare. They've been in the tournament now 5 straight years, which is crazy. 5 straight tournament appearance for Colgate. They keep on winning their conference. They haven't pulled off an upset yet. And Baylor is, obviously they're coming off a national title 2 years ago. They've become really good at March Madness. I don't personally see it here for Colgate.
No, yeah, me too. For me, it's Baylor.
Now, here's a school I'm very interested to see in this tournament: the Dayton Flyers. They were in a fight for the A10 regular season title. They lost in their conference tournament, but this is their first tournament appearance since they were robbed of their golden chance with Obi Toppin back in 2020. Versus a Nevada team that is really good and I think also very underseeded.
I think it's going to be another even matchup, but I give it Dayton.
Mm-hmm. All right, it appears that we have lost Gus momentarily, so I'll just keep on going here. We got Arizona, the 2 seed. Now, it bears repeating here when it comes to Arizona. Arizona was a 2 seed last year when they lost to Princeton and got upset. Tommy Lloyd has a lot of questions to answer heading into this tournament. They didn't win the Pac-12 tournament. I mean, they lost in, I believe, the quarterfinals of the Pac-12 tournament. They had some rough losses down the stretch because they were in a pole spot to get that 1 seed. And I think Gus is back with us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I was just talking about Arizona and how they blew the 1 seed heading down the stretch. They were a 2 seed last year and lost a 15 seed at Princeton. I feel like there's a ton of pressure on Tommy Lloyd because Arizona's a basketball school. They expect to win in March Madness. And I feel like Arizona right now kind of is starting to develop a reputation, kind of like a Purdue, kind of like Tennessee, of good during the regular season, not good during the tournament. They gotta do something here in this tournament.
Yeah, that's true. And it said they were kind of fighting for the 1 seed, but it kind of fell apart at the end and might take a hit. I think they can advance against Long Beach State, but I don't see them passing Dayton.
Now, Long Beach State, before we move on, this is the cool story. So they fired their coach last week, Dan Munson. He's been there for 17 years, but they let him coach the conference tournament, and they won 4 games in 4 days to get to this point. So they are coaching with a fired coach.
And that's the cool thing. If it has nothing to lose, and in sports, majority of time when you have nothing to lose, because he's probably gonna coach his hardest and also he's gonna be more relaxed because he's like, hey, I'm fired. There's nothing I can do to kind of makes me look bad. And it might be like a Cinderella story. But but I still think that Arizona can take care of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably agree there too. I will also say this: do you know what Long Beach's nickname is? It's just beach. They're literally just the Long Beach State Beach. I learned that the other day, which is
very
creative.
Super very creative.
Yeah, but that's a Cinderella story maybe to watch there. Head over to the South. We got Houston, number 1, of course, coming off just a trouncing to Iowa State, but they were on a roll before that. They're taking on Longwood, who won the Big South over UNC Asheville, crushed Drew Pember and the UNC Asheville. Any upset there? Because in Longwood, we played them 2 years ago, and we took care of them pretty handily.
Yeah, I think I think Houston can take care of business too.
The 8-9 here. Now, what's interesting to note about Nebraska, Texas A&M, not only did they both used to be in the Big 12 and now are in the SEC and Big 10, but we also have this matchup on the women's side too, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the first time both the same 2 schools are playing in both the men and women's tournament at the same time. And Texas A&M just took Nebraska's athletic director. So it's very interesting. Especially Nebraska fans, I'm sure, don't like Trev Alberts anyway. I mean, yeah, their football program has been a disaster.
Yeah, and I guess and then it's the 2 big brands. It's always interesting to see big brands matching up in the playoffs, especially in basketball in the women's and men's side. And I'll go with the Aggies.
I agree. Nebraska at one point this year, wow, we went dark mode all of a sudden. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah,
but Nebraska at one point was undefeated at home, winless on the road in Big Ten play through 15 games. I just think A&M is the better team. Okay, we have the part of our take bowl right here. We got Big Cats Wisconsin Badgers versus PFT commenters James Madison Dukes. So that was a very entertaining listen earlier this week. But I think it's going to be a good game here. Of course, Tennessee, we went and beat Wisconsin in like the first game of the season, and they really got off to an amazing start. We're top 10, collapsed during Big Ten play, but got it back together this past week. They upset Purdue, made it to the Big Ten title game, gave Illinois a good fight in the Big Ten title game. James Madison has the most wins of any team in the country at 32. They're 32-3.
Oof. I'll go with the Badgers.
Ooh, it's very trendy upset pick, which makes me think that ultimately Wisconsin will find a way to win. Now, on this, we have Duke. Everyone loves to hate Duke. Of course, Duke has been marginalized. And did you see that after they lost to NC State, which actually is coming up next, ironically, after they lost to NC State in the ACC quarterfinals, they muted their Twitter replies.
Oh my God! No,
They're so soft.
don't, just don't do that. I mean, I know I work with with a sports with a soccer team that can have good days and bad days, and I always say let fans have it. That's their space. Just turn it off and ignore it. But to mute it altogether, I guess I guess their Instagram account. I would think they not like cancel comments. I want to believe that.
Yeah, imagine if they lost to Vermont, who has been the mainstay of the tournament for a little bit. They dominated their conference. Any chance the Dukies get knocked off here?
I don't know. Oh, I guess at least they let the fans comment on their Instagram. But the first comment that comes up is on their post about the loss to NC State. Softest Duke team ever. No heart at all.
Yeah. Which is why I personally picked Vermont to upset Duke in my personal bracket.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, so you're taking Vermont?
Yeah, I'll take Vermont.
Oh, yeah. Catamounts. All right, so we have six-seeded Texas Tech Raiders. Here, a team that's been a mainstay in the tournament now for a few years because they made the national title game back in 2019. And then we have NC State that came out of nowhere. Rumors were they were about to fire their coach, Kevin Keats. And then DJ Burns, former Vol, leads them to the ACC championship, upsetting both Duke and North Carolina along the way, getting a miracle against Virginia. I mean, can they keep that momentum going?
Yeah, that's true. NC State, I think that's the program that has the best momentum because, as you said, they were they went with this tournament with no hope, with thoughts about firing their coach, and they eliminated two blue bloods and survive against Virginia. I'll take NC State.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Actually, I think I picked Texas Tech, but I could definitely see that game going either way. And just a bit of a score update: Grambling State has come back from a 14-point deficit. They lead Montana State 65-63 with 3:35 left in regulation of that game. A big, they're going hard for a chance to take on Purdue here in 2 days. Which, hey, it worked out for the last 16 that faced them. So down here we got Coach Cal, and I mean we could argue which coaches in this tournament have the most pressure. Coach Cal's got to be up towards the top of this list right here. The third-seeded Kentucky Wildcats, a team that has gotten a lot better throughout the year and arguably might have the best offense in college basketball, versus the 14th-seeded Oakland. I can't remember actually what they're called, but they're Oakland. They're from Michigan. Does Kentucky take care of business here?
I don't know. In the past, remember, I think there were a couple of times they were, or at least once they were eliminated in the first round, but I think they can take care of business.
I'm going to take the Wildcats. So I will say this: Oakland does have apparently the best three-point shooter in the entire country. So do keep that in mind. And of course, Kentucky has had a huge weakness on defense, although I think they have played at least somewhat better recently on defense. Granted, they didn't look good in the tournament against Texas A&M. All right, Down here, we have the Florida Gators, 7th seed, solid season for Todd Golden. They are waiting to find out who they're even going to play. We got to first figure out here in just about under an hour, we're going to find out who plays between Boise State and Colorado. First and foremost, who do we think is going to win that game? Because, I mean, I think Boise State should not be in the bubble. They should be well above. Colorado, I think, is well seated.
I'll go Colorado, and then Florida take care of business.
I'm personally going Boise State, but in either case, I would also take Florida to win this game. All right, we've got Marquette, the 2 seed. They are getting Tyler Kolek back, one of the best players in the country, per Shaka Smart. They're taking on Western Kentucky. Shaka Smart's had a bit of a history in March Madness, not a great history since his VCU Final Four run. Maybe a little bit of pressure on him here as well. Any chance the Hilltoppers take out Marquette?
I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, but I think Marquette's going to get in.
All right, down to the West. And probably this will be the most scrutinized team in this entire tournament right here. Well, maybe outside maybe one in orange, but this is one of them. This is probably the one with the single most pressure. We might actually have to discuss which one has the most pressure between Purdue, Kentucky, and a certain team in orange heading into this tournament. But Purdue, they're a 1 seed again for the second straight year. We know how it ended last year to a certain team called Farley Dickinson. We're about to find out who they're going to play. It's 65-64 Grambling. There's 3.5 minutes. Can Purdue be a 1 seed and win?
Yes. I think at least in the first round, I think they can advance. They can, get in.
Okay. Now, let's choose our second round here. We got Utah State, a team that's been pretty good. I was thinking they were going to be like a 5 or a 6 seed once again. All the Mountain West teams in general got disrespected to no end. There's another conference too I want to bring up as well that got disrespected. Versus TCU, a team that has been okay this year. I personally think Utah State's better.
TCU, I think, has been in a kind of in a good momentum. So even though Utah State on paper is better, I'll go TCU.
Okay. Now, here's an interesting one here. We got Gonzaga, who's a 5 seed. And honestly, I think they were overseeded. I think they haven't been impressive this year. We have a tied game now, by the way, in Grambling and Montana State. 67-67. It's about to be a wild ending here in Dayton. They're taking on Will Wade and the 12-seeded McNeese State Racers. Who do you think takes this one?
I think the Zags, but it's interesting that Will Wade and Rick Pitino is the kind of coaches that they're shady, but they definitely can coach it very well.
Absolutely. I wonder if Will Wade will stay behind this year. I personally picked McNeese in this game, I believe. So it'll be a very interesting game. Now, Samford and Kansas. Kansas has lost one of its best players for the season. And they additionally, Lance McCullers is out for the year. Additionally, Hunter Dickinson's just returned now from injury. They're not at 100% strength. And Samford's only lost 5 games all year in the SoCon. We're able to outlast ETSU for the championship there. This is one of the most popular upsets to pick.
I'll go Kansas. Even though Samford had a good run in the SoCon, it's different to face, a team kind of like the Jayhawks.
Okay. Now, we have South Carolina here, probably one of the most pleasant surprises across the country. Lamont Paris is killing it down in Columbia, taking on an Oregon team that had to go on a run in the Pac-12 to make it here. This is an interesting game to me. I think this is going to be a very tight, low-scoring game.
Me too, but I'll go Oregon.
I agree. I took Oregon as well. I think South Carolina, they might tense up here because they're young and they've never been in this spot. So I like Oregon. Now, Creighton from the Big East, they're the only team to beat UConn in the last 21 games for Connecticut. Taking on Akron. Okay, This I don't know if you saw the ending of Kent State and Akron, but this should be Kent State right here because Kent State had hit a shot to go up 61-60. And Laura said, "Have a good night, guys. We have a few weeks to go on basketball." Bye. Thank you so much, Laura, for tuning in with us. But basically, Kent State takes the lead, and then one of their players fouls up one with 4 seconds left because the player thought they were down one and cost his team the win because Akron went down and hit 2 free throws.
Ah, I'll go
The
crazy.
the biggest blunder I've seen in a college basketball game. Now, hold on, no, don't want to do that. Going back to the round of 64. Okay, so now we're getting into an interesting spot here. And it's actually really convenient Tennessee's the last game for our purposes. So we have Texas, the 7 seed. They do have one of the most prolific scorers in NCAA and Max Abrams. Used to be of Oral Roberts. But they've been highly inconsistent. And they're taking on a Colorado State team who won, I think, was underseeded. Like I said with every other Mountain West team. They're coming off a win last night against Virginia in one of the ugliest games you'll ever see. Virginia had no business being in this tournament. Indiana State should have been there instead. That was a disgrace to the NCAA that Virginia, with that anemic offense, was in the tournament. That was atrocious. And the selection committee should be ashamed of themselves.
I'll go Texas go Texas Longhorns.
Absolutely. And now, this is what we've been waiting for right here. The Volunteers, Tennessee, the 2 seed. Shout out to All-American Dalton Connect, first teamer. But let's be real. We're coming off of a really bad loss against Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. Granted, I was in court. I didn't really see what happened. Just going back after the fact, it just appeared that it was similar to the first game in that we couldn't really handle their big center and Tolu Smith. And we went 3-point crazy. We shot 23 points in the first half. That's not Tennessee basketball. We are not the Golden State Warriors. We cannot settle for a freeze like that. We have got to pound the ball inside, set up open looks, kick and drive. That's how we get ourselves going shooting. We cannot settle for a freeze like that. I don't know if they just didn't care, if they just wanted to get to the NCAA tournament, which in a way, I don't blame them. I didn't really care what we did, but I would feel better if we didn't come out looking like that.
Yeah, like Tennessee, their goal in the ASCC tournament was make a solid opening game, and then from then on they would have nothing to lose. But definitely that loss against Mississippi State, kind of made fans a little bit, skeptical. But I think at least against St. Peter, they can take care of business.
Yeah, of course, St. Peter's. Now, we all know what happened 2 years ago with St. Peter's. They went to the Elite Eight after upsetting Kentucky and Murray State and Purdue. Lost to UNC in that Elite Eight. Now, since St. Peter's team is not the same St. Peter's team, they don't have the same coach and they don't have the same players. Their tallest player is 6'9". They play a very slow style of basketball. They're one of the slowest in terms of tempo, one of the lowest rated offenses, but they are a pretty high rated defense. They're going to try to make this an ugly game, but Tennessee has the size and athleticism that they should be able to dominate the tempo of this game. I think Tennessee needs to make this a fast, wide open game, and I don't think the Peacocks would be able to keep up in that case. We just got to come out laser focused and don't let them get any hope. That's the thing with the Cinderellas. When you're a favorite, you've got to come out and you got to step on their throat immediately. You cannot give them life. Because the thing about it is when you're the top seed, is not only you're just going against their fans, you're going against every other fan in the arena. Because the Texas, whoever wants to Texas, Colorado State, they'll stay up behind the roof for St. Peter's. Our North Carolina fans are also in charge. Let's stick around the roof for St. Peter's. You have to control the game. But in all honesty, I expect us to win this game.
Yeah, I'll take Tennessee too.
All right. So, in the second round, I won't spend as much time going over the teams, but UConn FAU. What do you think happened there?
UConn. Let's just pick
All right, San Diego State,
uh,
Auburn.
San Diego State,
Ooh, that's interesting. I think I would pick Auburn there. Um, BYU, Illinois.
BYU,
Okay, I would agree with that. Drake, Iowa State.
Iowa State,
Okay, I think I have Drake going to the Sweet 16. North Carolina, Michigan State.
North Carolina,
St. Mary's, Alabama.
I'll go Bama.
I actually would pick St. Mary's. I think they would slow it down and make it very uncomfortable. New Mexico, Baylor.
Baylor,
I would agree. I think that'd be a good game, though. Dayton, Arizona.
Dayton,
I like that pick. Houston A&M. This was a good game earlier this year in Houston.
I'll go Cougars.
I think I picked A&M in my bracket. All right, Wisconsin versus Vermont.
The Badgers survive.
Okay. NC State, Kentucky. Does NC State continue their magic?
Yes.
Ooh, down goes Kentucky to the Wolfpack. All right, Gators versus Marquette.
Gators.
Ooh. Actually, low-key, I like that pick a lot. I think I would pick that too. But that wasn't the matchup I got. Purdue, TCU. Can Purdue avoid another upset?
Yes, Purdue.
Gonzaga and Kansas.
Oh, I think that's the best matchup in the round of 32 that we are
But
projecting.
keep in mind, in Kansas, the injuries and stuff, I'd pick Gonzaga here.
I'll pick Gonzaga. But I think Kansas is going to take down to the wire.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great game. All right, Oregon versus Creighton.
Oregon upsets.
Ooh. And how about this? Rick Barnes versus Texas.
The UT Derby.
Yes. I'm going to be honest. At my personal bracket, and this might be sacrilege, I picked Texas. Just because I just there's some things about this matchup, especially Max Abrams being a prolific scorer, our notorious history in the second round that scares me. But if you believe, I'll believe right with you.
I'll believe Tennessee. At least make it to the Sweet 16.
Ooh, and we have 72-72 in Grambling, Montana State. With 6 seconds left, Grambling has the ball.
Yeah, after number 2 from Montana State had lost a really good chance in the rim.
Oh, yeah. These 16-16 games are nuts. All right, let's pick the Sweet 16 here. UConn, San Diego State.
San Diego State.
Ooh, that would shock me. Now, granted, they did the same thing last year. I think this Connecticut team's a lot better than that Alabama team. But that would be madness for sure. All right, BYU, Iowa State. This is an all Big 12 matchup.
Iowa State survives.
All right. We have UNC, Alabama, man. There would be so many points in this game. This would be a crazy game.
I'll go Bama.
Ooh, man. Honestly, I could see it. Could they defend enough is my question. But, if they're hitting their threes, they could do it. All right, Baylor, Dayton.
Almost Grambling State scores. We're going to go to overtime. Grambling State, Montana State, 72 apiece. Going to go overtime.
What were they doing on that possession? They were just fumbling around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Overtime in Dayton. Wow.
And speaking of which, I'll go Dayton.
Ooh, yeah. Good segue right there. All right. In the South, we got Houston, Wisconsin. This would be in Dallas.
Houston.
All right. NC State, Florida.
NC State survives.
Ooh. And hey, if this matchup happened right here, Houston, NC State, that's the rematch of that 1984 Jimmy Valvano game where they threw the ball across the court and tipped it in. The
Oh,
whole survive and
sir,
advance.
yeah, I was gonna say, oh,
Yeah. Midwest, which would be in Detroit, Purdue, Gonzaga.
Purdue,
All right. Oregon, Tennessee.
Tennessee. So we're gonna have the Purdue Tennessee rematch.
Okay, I'll say if we're playing Purdue in the Elite Eight, I'm gonna have to take a Xanax or something. I will be a ball of nerves. Okay, San Diego State, Iowa State in Boston.
Iowa State.
All right, Iowa State to the Final Four.
Iowa
We
State to the
have
final.
we have Alabama versus Dayton in Los Angeles. Who's going to the Final
Alabama,
Four?
Bama.
Okay, we got Houston and NC State in Dallas. Who's going to the Final Four?
The Cinderella story ends here in Houston.
All right, and in Detroit, can the Vols finally beat Purdue in a big game?
And finally makes to the final four, and it'll be the first time ever.
God, there'd be so there's so many demons that we would have to destroy here.
Yeah. Oh my god. Hopefully that prediction that I'm gonna make doesn't happen, but I'll pick Purdue.
Okay, I would be devastated beyond belief.
Yeah, me too. But
Um, so after I die from losing to Purdue again, the Final Four: Iowa State and Alabama.
I'll go. Oh my god. Iowa State. I guess I took Iowa State all the way to the national championship
And
against
then Houston
Houston.
and Purdue
Houston.
against. So a Big 12, all Big 12 title game between Iowa State and Houston.
And Houston is the national championship.
Ooh, okay. And then what would be your final score prediction?
I think it's gonna be a mid-scoring game. It'll be like 85 to 72.
Okay, so that would be like 148, I think. All right, so we're gonna name this Houston. Wow. There you go. So we have picked you, and I will name this the podcast bracket.
Yeah, podcast bracket.
Yeah. There you go. We'll have to see how you do. Because this is my initial. I'll just show you what I picked in my initial. My final four is kind of wild. I have UConn, Baylor, Kentucky, and Utah State in my final four. I just got a bonkers final four of Connecticut being Kentucky in the national championship. Other notable stuff, I've got James Madison in the Elite Eight. I've got BYU in the Elite Eight. I've got Creighton in the Elite Eight. Unfortunately, as I said, I have Tennessee losing to Texas, but I hope I'm wrong, to say the least. So, and I have Samford in the Sweet 16. So I think I have them playing McNeese because I have both Gonzaga and Kentucky. Wait, who just Samford? Yeah, Gonzaga and Kansas both losing first round. So, but in any case, I'm sure we will both be wildly wrong because March Madness is insanely unpredictable, to say the least. Now, I do want to give a shout over to the women's game here. And for some reason, it looks like. Sure, this.
So Grambling State is leading 75 to 73.
Yeah, I think you're a little ahead of me, actually.
I'm ahead of you?
Yeah, you are ahead of me.
Wow.
Once again, it's the thing that boggles the mind. How are you ahead of me when you're in Brazil? But yeah, when we're watching Brazilian sports, how am I ahead of you?
Yeah, that's the great thing about streaming today is that it doesn't matter if you're in the same country where the game is happening. It's where like what streaming service you're using.
Yeah, and I will say, like, how do you guys watch March Madness? How does it come on in Brazil?
We have we basically the majority of the games you can watch on Star Plus, which is the ESPN Plus in Brazil. So basically, ESPN is the one that you can go for it. The regular ESPN today has NBA and soccer. So I guess probably tomorrow they're gonna start on the actual channel, but currently I'm watching on the streaming service.
And does it just telecast the CBS and TBS stuff, or do they produce their own separate broadcasts?
Last year actually was funny. They only let me watch the Spanish broadcasting version somehow. It wasn't even the English or the Portuguese. It was a Spanish broadcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm watching on mute, so I don't know if it's in English or not.
Well, it's gonna be weird this year as Jim Nance is not doing it for the first times in like 30
What?
years
Why?
because he
Why? Something?
retired. Yeah, he just retired from it because he still does like NFL and golf. He just wanted to retire from March Madness because he kind of just wanted to focus more on the Masters. So,
What?
so Ian
Which
Eagle will be the main voice at CBS.
Which is funny. Just before we talked about the women's side of it, I guess there's a lot of broadcasters that is kind of shifting away big names from the traditional sports to more like calm sports. Like for example, Bob Costas. He had a really good gig in football with the NBC Sunday Night Football, and he rather stay in baseball. Jim Nance, was the voice of March Madness, but he preferred golf. So I guess when you get to that level, you make some choices, and I guess those choices are less the big brands and more about the pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, because those dudes have a ton of money, so do what you love at that point. You should always
Yeah,
try to do what you love.
and they're still kind of making money. Jim Nance, I guess, get paid a lot of money to do the Masters, and Bob Costas with MLB Network, I guess he still do some things there. I guess he get really well compensated.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a lot better than a week straight of court, like I've done.
Yeah.
So, um, in any case, speaking of the woman, anyway, actually, I just saw Caitlin Clark in a commercial. So shout out to her. I know she's and what's crazy about the women's tournament compared to the men, I feel like if you ask people like name me 5 basketball players, men's or women, there's a chance they may actually name more women's players heading into this tournament.
Yeah, especially from Iowa, Kaylin Clark, but also Andrew Reese from LSU. I think there's more interesting women basketball players in college than in the pros, but on the men's side, it's the opposite. I think I'll say the last player that was polarizing, interesting that people wanted to watch in college basketball in the men's was Zion.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Before him, like Ben Simmons. I mean, I know we love Dalton Connect, but I mean, does he? What recognition does he
No,
have
no,
across the
no,
country?
no, no. There's a difference between Dalton Connect, which has been a really good player and a really effective player for the Tennessee Volunteers, and a polarizing player, really athlete that people stop to watch. Like when Zion was playing for Duke, Barack Obama and all other celebrities, and tickets are went to the roof when he played against North Carolina. His games against in the NCAA tournament were really highly, they had higher ratings. So people want to watch interesting players, and women's tournament has way more than the men's.
Oh yeah, I mean, Caitlin Clark has sold out every arena she's gone to this year. I mean, it's been nuts. Like, and because I admittedly watched a lot less women's basketball than men's basketball, but Iowa's made me watch more. So I want to watch Caitlin Clark play. So, you know, speaking of who they have to go through, obviously South Carolina, number 1 overall seed here. They lost to South Carolina in the Final Four. They take on, I think this is Sacred Heart at Presbyterian. Is there even any point discussing that game?
No, South Carolina.
Yeah. We got North Carolina, Michigan State. I honestly I don't know as much about the women's teams. Um, I think I would go UNC.
UNC, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, Florida Gulf Coast. Florida Gulf Coast is pretty good. Um,
Oklahoma.
Indiana Fairfield. Fairfield is 31-1, but Indiana did beat Iowa a few weeks ago.
Indiana.
And here's that Nebraska Texas A&M on the other side that I was talking about.
I'll go Nebraska.
Yeah, we'll give them the split. So
Revenge.
A&M and the
Yeah.
men's, the women from Nebraska. Nebraska lost to Iowa in overtime in the Big Ten title game. Oregon State, they've been a pretty good women's team now for a few years. I feel like they really started their run a few years ago when they beat Tennessee at Knoxville in the NCAA tournament in the second round. Do you remember that? Like 2019, I think, 2018.
Yeah, I remember, was the stretch that Oregon State in basketball as a whole dominated Tennessee. The women's then and the men's in 2021. So I'll pick Oregon State.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have the Ole Miss Rebels here, the 7th seed. The women still making it. Of course, the men just completely choked away their season versus Marquette.
Ole Miss.
All right, we have number 2 seeded Notre Dame versus the 15th seeded Kent State Golden Flashes.
Notre Dame.
All right, down here in Region 4, we have Texas and Drexel.
Texas Longhorns.
Yeah. Historically, there's not as many upsets on the women's side. We have Alabama number 8 versus number 9 Florida State. I know Alabama dominated Tennessee about a month ago.
Bama.
Wow, Texas, Alabama, second round. Football revenge, maybe. We have Utah, San Diego State.
South Dakota State.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Jackrabbits. Gonzaga. The women have a higher seed than the men. Versus UC Irvine.
Gonzaga.
Now, here we go. Kelly Harper. Now, granted, we've been very critical of her this year, but you got to give her team credit. They have battled their way to a top 6 seed. I did not expect them to get that high of a seed. I think they probably deserve more of a 7 or an 8. But Green Bay is a good team. They've been pretty solid over the past several years. Do we think Lady Vols take care of business in game 1?
Yes.
Now, they'll play either NC State or the Chattanooga Lady Mocs.
Chattanooga.
Yeah, let's do it. Lady Mocs, give me an all.
Oh my God. Your nightmare matchup.
Hey, on the men's side, it would be. The ladies' side is not as much. If it were a men's game, I would be dying on the inside.
Well, at least in this matchup, you won't be sad. Whoever wins, you happy. And
yeah.
And Grambling State is really close to advance. They are 6-point lead with 22 seconds.
Yeah, they'll try to. Looks like they're going to be the team that's going to try to repeat what Farley Dickinson did against Purdue on Friday. We have Iowa State and Maryland in the 7-10.
Maryland.
So we're going to really good women's basketball school. We have Stanford versus Norfolk State.
Stanford.
All right, here we go. We got Caitlin Clark, Iowa, a number 1 seed, Big Ten tournament champions, taking on Holy Cross or UT Martin.
I would like it. It would be cool to see you. If UT Martin get in, you'll be really nice job by the UT system. Because all those 3 schools are the UT system. The Lady Vols in Knoxville, UT Martin in Martin, Tennessee, and Chattanooga. I hope Iowa defeats UT Martin.
Yeah. West Virginia, Princeton.
West Virginia.
Actually, I picked Princeton. That's a really good. They've been top 25 in points this year. But WVU is pretty good, too. We got Colorado versus Drake. Drake has both teams in. Shout out to them.
Colorado.
Down here in the 4-13, we got Kansas State and Portland.
Kansas State.
Now, this is an interesting one right here. We got Louisville. Obviously, been a really good women's school for a few years. But MTSU, remember, they beat Tennessee pretty handily earlier this year. They're a pretty good team.
Yeah, they probably could. They probably were underseeded. They should have been like a 10 seed. But
Yeah.
I'll I'll uh, 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 Louisville,
And they'll take on either LSU or Rice.
LSU, no doubt about it.
And that would be fascinating right there. Um, Creighton, UNLV. And Grambling's officially won. 881. So Grambling
UNLV,
State
yeah,
will take
80,
they
right,
will take on Purdue on Friday. Shout out to
yeah.
Grambling.
Isn't
UCLA, Cal
isn't
Baptist. Go ahead.
isn't Grambling State HBCU?
Yes, yes. Yeah, they're up in northern Louisiana. One of the most historic ones. Eddie Robinson coached there in football, one of the most winningest coaches in the history of college football. So they've produced a lot of talent out of Grambling. So hey, I like Grambling. I'll always root for the HBCUs.
But in women's basketball, go UCLA.
Region free. USC is a team I need to watch some because they have this girl named Juju Watkins who's been scoring like crazy. She's like putting up 50 in games, like it's nuts. Versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
USC,
All right. We have Kansas and Michigan.
Kansas.
Now down here we have Baylor versus Vanderbilt or Columbia. Vanderbilt's in the play-in game. First one, so we think Vanderbilt beats Columbia in the play-in game.
Yes, and imagine that the state of Tennessee would have if UT Martin and Vandy get in, they will have UT Martin, Vanderbilt, MTSU, Chattanooga, and Tennessee will be 5 teams.
Yeah. There's a team left out there that's that's really interesting and really calls themselves a basketball school, but I can't put my finger on it, Gus. I cannot put my finger on that team. There's a certain team out west on the Mississippi River that talks a lot of trash saying the best athletic program in the state of Tennessee, but they don't have their. But you're telling me that their men's or women's team are not in the tournaments?
Oh yeah, and the city we start with M.
Yeah, it starts with M. I see. It also having an awful NBA season too. So, right. So, sucks to be Memphis.
But in terms of, I think Vandy wins, but loses to Baylor.
All right. Yeah, Virginia Tech and Marshall.
Virginia Tech.
All right. We also have another SEC team here. We got Auburn versus Arizona, and then that winner plays Syracuse.
Syracuse.
UConn on the women's team, a free seed against Jackson State.
Another HBCU school, but I think UConn is gonna win.
Then we have Duke and Richmond.
Duke.
And Ohio State and Maine.
Ohio State.
Okay. South Carolina, North Carolina, second round.
South Carolina.
Oklahoma and Indiana.
Indiana.
Nebraska and Oregon State.
Nebraska.
I like that pick. Ole Miss, Notre Dame.
Ole Miss.
All right. Texas, Alabama. Rematch of a big football game from this past year.
Longhorns. I don't think it's going to be a revenge.
South Dakota State, Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. Next one you pick.
Well, I'm going to have to pick Lady Vols. I think Lady Vols would get it done. And I don't really have to think about it there. Maryland, Stanford.
Stanford.
All right. West Virginia, Iowa.
Iowa.
Colorado, Kansas State.
Kansas State.
Now, this is the Haley Van Lith game. We have HVL on LSU versus her old team, Louisville. I know Jason Wyrick is very interested to see this game happen.
I'll go Tigers.
Yeah. Sorry, we have to. UNLV, UCLA.
UCLA.
USC, Kansas.
USC.
Baylor, Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Syracuse, UConn.
UConn.
Duke, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
All right, Sweet 16, we have South Carolina, Indiana.
South Carolina.
Nebraska, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
All SEC there. We have Texas, Gonzaga.
Texas.
All right, Tennessee, Lady Vols back in the Sweet 16 against Stanford.
Tennessee.
All right, well, I guess you can call this an all SEC matchup now. Iowa, Kansas State.
Iowa.
LSU, UCLA.
LSU.
Rematch
Oh my God,
of last year's national title game.
Oh my God, this match is going to be so, get the ratings to the
USC, Virginia Tech.
USC and Ohio State.
UConn. Okay. All right, South Carolina, Ole Miss.
South Carolina.
Lady Vols. Can they get back to the Final Four for the first time in 16 years?
I don't see it, unfortunately. They made a good journey, but I'll pick the Longhorns.
Hey, I would be very happy with the Elite. So we have both the Lady Vols and the men's team going to the Elite Eight, coming up one game short. Which
hopefully we are wrong and they can make it to the Final Four.
Yeah, which I can't be that mad at that, but still would love to see a Final Four. All right, Iowa, LSU, rematch last year's Maddie. All right, we're gonna go for revenge.
Revenge.
USC, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
All right, so we have 3-1 seeds, 1-2. South Carolina, Texas.
South Carolina.
And then Iowa, Ohio State. And these two teams split in the regular season.
Iowa is going to be, oh my God, the best two teams.
Yeah. So who wins? So remember, Iowa took out South Carolina in the Final Four semifinals last year. So South Carolina at this point will be trying to complete a perfect season. Caitlin Clark is trying to go for immortality.
Caitlin Clark deserves so much. Give the title to her.
All right, and what would be your final score?
62 to 58.
Okay, so that's 120. All right, so the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And Caitlin Clark gets it done.
So I'm going to call this. We're going to. Where's our dashboard? So this is bracket pick. All right, podcast bracket. All right, I'm very curious to see how that goes up against my personal bracket, just so we can see over here. My Final Four, I actually had Tennessee going into the Final Four. Maybe this is just delusion. I actually had us upsetting South Carolina because, hey, we've come close a couple of times. We've played them tough 3 times. We should have beaten them in Greenville. Hey, if you get a 4th chance of South Carolina, you're due to get one. So I had Tennessee beat South Carolina, then Iowa beat UConn, and then Iowa beat Tennessee in the national title game. So I don't know what that says about me, that, I have the women in the national title game, but the men losing in the second round. Even though the men have been unquestionably a better team all year.
Yeah. It would be for me if that happens for the Lady Vols, then definitely Kelly Harper will secure her job.
Oh, absolutely. That would be a very big accomplishment for her. So we'll see what we can do. Some other things I want to pull up or bring up here. I mentioned a lot the Mountain West got screwed during this process. I feel like a lot of their teams got underseeded in the men's bracket. The Big East only had 3 teams make the tournament. Those were UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. There were teams like St. John's, Seton Hall, Providence, Villanova were left out of the tournament altogether. And I think Villanova deserved to be left out, but arguably one of Providence, St. John's, Seton Hall should have been in. And I know they got screwed over a little bit with some of the auto bids getting stolen, like Oregon and NC State, but still, the Big East is a better conference than what they were rewarded with this year. And I just don't understand why they're not getting rewarded.
Yeah, it's one of the things that there'll be complaints about the committee. Like there's complaints about the committee. I guess the ACC got screwed in the college football playoffs. The Big East got screwed in the basketball college playoffs.
Absolutely. And, obviously for those teams that don't make the NCAA tournament, you have an opportunity to go play in the NIT, the battle for the 69th best team in the country, as people like to say. But there's several teams that didn't play in this tournament. Like St. John's said, we're not going to do it. I think Seton Hall said we didn't want to do it. Indiana, Syracuse, Ole Miss, Memphis, Oklahoma.
Oh, Memphis, really? So Penny Hardaway doesn't want to, face hardship.
Yeah, and actually, it's an interesting thing. A quote from Trey Young of the Atlanta Hawks. He went to Oklahoma. He said, "Nobody watching that coming to the NIT," and as he committed Oklahoma for saying no, because basically we don't care about the NIT. I think that tournament's in danger.
It's so funny because NIT is kind of like the bowl games for college basketball. There's only 3 games that matter in a postseason in college football. Now it's going to be even more, but at least with the bowl games, you get the chance to travel. It's only 1 game, but NIT, it's overshadowed. I think. And did you saw the tweet that somebody suggested that the champion of NIT got a bid in the tournament next
No,
year?
God, no. That's a horrible. Because, what if the winner of the NIT goes 0-30 the next year? You can't put that team in the tournament.
I mean, if that's so, then the winner of the NCAA tournament should deserve to have the bid next year, not the NIT champion.
Even then, I couldn't agree with that. And plus, I will say that
because, for example, the Champions League winner gets the bid next year.
Well, the difference there is soccer teams typically don't shift that much from year to year. Now, sometimes they do if a lot of contracts come up, but college teams are constantly changing year to year to year to year. You never have the same team year to year.
I guess that's true. And then what do you do in the regular season for that team that gets the bid? What do you play for?
Yeah. Why would you risk anything during the regular season at all? I mean,
yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense. And I will say this when it comes to the NIT as well. They used to have auto bids for teams that won their regular season titles but didn't win their conference championships. But they got rid of that. I think that's ridiculous. Let's be real. Those mid-major schools would care way more about the NIT than bad major schools.
Yeah.
So,
but at the end, as you said it perfectly, the NIT is the team is just to choose the 69 best team.
Exactly. I remember when Tennessee went. I think we played MTSU or something and lost, and no one really cared. And I think we lost to Mercer or something like that. No one cared. I guess 2012. I think when we played in the NIT.
Yeah. And I guess no Tennessee fan missed those days.
No, that was awful because there'd be 5,000 people inside the arena. It was like a COVID crowd inside Thompson Bowling Arena, and it was just quiet and it was depressing. And then you had to turn on the TV the next day and watch everyone else have fun in the actual tournament. I'll tell you, no matter what happens for the Vols, I enjoy being in the tournament basically every year. And as painful as some of these losses have been, I'm just glad to be here.
like I was rewatching again the press conference and my question to be exact that I asked Rick Barnes when Tennessee was eliminated by Oregon State in the first round, and he said something: "You don't ever take this for granted. Like it's really hard to get in. Like
Yes.
you know,
Because remember that year before, we weren't going in 2020. Before COVID uh, canceled that tournament, we were, unless we had went on a run in that SEC tournament, we weren't making it. Because I think because we were well off the bubble, we were going to have to win the SEC tournament, um, and that would have been painful to have to go through that tournament, especially the year before with our heartbreaking loss to Purdue. So in a weird way, even though everyone else was really sad that March Madness didn't happen, in a way, I was kind of like selfishly a little glad because I didn't
oh,
have to watch a tournament where Tennessee wasn't in it because
and
that
definitely
sucks.
no. And for Rick Barnes, to be honest, of course, everybody suffered through COVID, but he, with that cancellation of the tournament, was able to, you know, basically no Tennessee fan ever think about that season and point fingers at Rick Barnes because it kind of was forgotten.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a 3 year to suck. Like, and I'm glad we weren't good that year because it would have. Imagine if that had happened the year before. Imagine if we never got to see the Grand Admiral team go into the tournament.
Yeah.
Because like, what it would that would be more painful than what we got. Because at least we know, okay, at least we actually went there and we lost. You know, and at least right now this Dalton Connect team, God willing, we're going to be able to go out there, play tomorrow, and start our journey tomorrow. And who knows how long that's going to go. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so scared, I'm so nervous. At this point, I've made peace with it. The tournament is so crazy, and let's be real, this is not a good way to select a champion. Just on from an objective level, it's way too crazy and way too random for one basketball game to determine who should advance on to the next round. But it's what we have. And
No,
honestly, I think great coaches, sometimes you just need luck.
I think because the way the regular season design with so many conferences and there's so many factors that play in, you gotta have a tournament like that. There's no I feel like there's no way to determine in another way. Like, I don't see because rankings basically are irrelevant in college basketball. So unlike football,
Oh yeah. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, our boys are still alive and our girls are still alive this time next week and fighting. So good luck to them and good luck to everyone getting ready to take on March Madness. Now, in some other college sports news, Clemson has joined the fray with Florida State. They are suing the ACC, saying we want out. We want to be able to leave without paying you. I don't know if that is going to be a winning argument. I mean, they signed a contract, the grant of rights. You sign the contract, you have to pay to leave.
I think they're like, we have nothing to lose, let's try to get this lawsuit, and if we find a maybe some judge that rules in our favor, then it open Pandora's box, and then they can both go to the SEC because that's what they wanted. And it's kind of like the SEC wants them, they want to go to the SEC. It's kind of like a relationship where you are with you are not you are with somebody but you doesn't love them, but you get to know someone and they like you or you like them, but you cannot leave your current partner, I don't know, because some financial or residential. But it's kind of like that. I think Clemson, Florida State definitely want to go to the SEC, and I think the SEC, with the expansion, will only take those two schools from other conferences, and then it will close them, like close the gate.
Yeah, and I heard someone say what could be a big part of this is ESPN. Like ESPN could say, okay, we're stepping in. We don't really want to do business with the ACC anymore. We're going to terminate the grant of rights from our end so we can let Clemson and Florida State go to wherever you want. Now, I'm sure the ACC and NARN could probably come back and sue ESPN saying, hey, you agreed to this too, and now you're screwing us over to help out your other business partner.
Yeah, that'll be a interesting move.
And it certainly would be. We're going to have to see how this happens now. We have two separate ACC schools. The ACC, frankly, is on life support right now, it feels like, from all these lawsuits. The Vols, they are back on the gridiron for spring practice. Josh Heupel did speak with the media on Monday. He spoke on Nico Imialava, saying that he's continuing to grow into the role, that he believes he's really embracing being QB1. He said that there's a lot of really good transfers that he's really happy with, especially Lance Hurd, who he believes will be starting left tackle more than likely. He's from LSU, former five-star recruit. Additionally, he talked about new coaches coming in, such as William Ing as the new linebackers coach and Darrell Sims, the running backs coach. So they're just, I believe, in practice 2 or practice 3 at this point. I was looking at the depth chart. Our defensive line is exciting. Like, we have great players in the first, second, and third string. I think the clear point of weakness is our secondary. Just a lot of young guys who don't have a lot of experience, but I think there is talent there.
Yeah, and I think Josh Heupel knows what he's doing. He's rebuilding, his coaching staff and a lot of, points. So spring practice, their goal is to start the rhythm, start finding, where they can fix it. And, spring practice is about get the best out of those, 15 practices.
Yeah, and he mentioned that the team now is different than where they were at the bowl game. Of course, that's where we saw them a few months ago. So there are a lot of new guys with the team since we saw them in the Citrus Bowl.
Oh wow, it feels like it was just yesterday that we were in Orlando. That game I will always remember. I will always cherish that Citrus Bowl, my national champion.
Absolutely. And the last college sports note, the Baseballs lost their opening SEC series to Alabama. Road series, top 15 team. I don't think there's any reason to panic here. I think they will win plenty of series before the end of the year. But they got to work on their pitching. Got to work on the pitching.
But one of those games in the series, they dominated.
Yeah, the game 1 they dominated, but game 2, Bama came back and shellacked them, and then game 3 went down to the wire. So it is what it is. They'll be fine, I think. In any case, over to some NFL talk here. First and foremost, I gotta recognize the great Aaron Donald. He announced his retirement in the last week. Arguably one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, he was dominant from the moment he came into the league to the moment he left. Of course, Super Bowl champion, multiple-time All-Pro. I think a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, arguably he's the greatest pass rusher of all time.
Oh yeah, he was a defensive monster. He was a funny picture of him tackling Patrick Mahomes, and after he won the 2021 Super Bowl, I feel like he knew that his job was done, that he got the ring, and for then on was just tic tac for his deserving retirement, and he's gonna be in Canton, Ohio for sure.
Absolutely. I think one of those when he rushed Joe Burrow and disrupted that play on the fourth down, and he goes up, going to the camera, just points at his finger saying, "Ring me, ring me, ring me." That's one of the most iconic shots in NFL history, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. That play is going to be forever remembered of Rams fans.
Yeah, I mean, and the argument is he better than Reggie White? Is he better than Lawrence Taylor? I wasn't around for those guys, so I can't really compare one to one. But in my era, and since I've been watching since the mid-2000s, he's the best one I've seen. I mean, the only one that comes close, I think, is J.J. Watt, but I think Watt wasn't able to stay healthy for long enough. So I think right now, for sure, Aaron Donald is the best, at least of this generation. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
And I hope he has an amazing retirement. Wonderful doing any TV work. I think that would be a lot of fun. Now, Last week, when we were talking about all the crazy NFL free agency moves, we were wondering what's going to happen with Justin Fields. Well, we've gotten our answer. He was traded to Pittsburgh. Now, you might be asking, wait, didn't Pittsburgh already trade for a quarterback? They did, because they traded for Russell Wilson last week. But they said, why not? Let's go get 2 quarterbacks. They traded for Justin Fields, too, and only had to give away a 6th-round pick. So, Pittsburgh has said, we are starting Russell Wilson now, but we hope to grow Justin Fields into that starting role after Russell Wilson. Do you like this plan for Pittsburgh?
When you, for example, you are out of something in your house and you go to the supermarket and you see that great deal and you're like, you know what? I'll take it. That was Pittsburgh uh, with Russell Wilson now with Justin Fields. Definitely the Kenny Pickett experiment didn't work out. Mason Rudolph, he uh, played as well as he could, but he wasn't reliable. By the way, he went to the Titans, and that was a surprise. And I feel like then Steelers addressed at least the position that fans were complaining last year.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And as you said, they're not paying a lot here. I think it's a gamble worth taking. And Pittsburgh, clearly, they are looking to cash in now because they have such a great defense. And I think Mike Tomlin knows he's got to do something or else he's going to get fired because there's only so many 9-8 seasons you can take before you have to move on. Rumor is they might go after Terry McLaurin, which I think would be an amazing addition from the Washington Commanders for Pittsburgh. So if they can land him, that offense might be pretty scary because I like George Pickens. I like Jalen Warren a lot, running back, but you got Najee Harris. I think they need to lower his volume a little bit in terms of carries before you injure him. But Pittsburgh's going to have a pretty interesting team, to say the least. I just don't know if they can compete with Baltimore, is the thing. Because I think Baltimore's still a lot better.
And Cincinnati, too. Don't take the
Cleveland,
Bengals
I think, is good, too.
Yeah, the AFC North definitely is the best division. That's why, even though Tom is a defensive coach, he had to do something to address his offense.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Every team in that division made the playoffs last year, outside the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals would have been in if they were healthy. So,
yeah.
So, in any case, that's going to be interesting what happens in Pittsburgh. Now, back in Chicago. We pretty much can assume that with that number 1 overall pick, they're probably taking Caleb Williams.
They're not probably.
Any chance they're taking anyone else?
No, they're taking Caleb Williams. They're taking it. And actually, today was his pro day down in California. He was very optimistic about it, and speaking highly of the Bears.
Yeah, well,
I don't
really.
And they're RG3 suggested that he pull a Eli Manning, but you know what? I don't see him doing that.
Well, I don't know why he would. Chicago just got Keenan Allen for a 4th-round pick from Los Angeles. So can we talk about what are the Chargers doing? Like, you get Jim Harbaugh. That looks like a big splash hiring, but you've let Austin Eckler go, and now you've traded away Keenan Allen and let Mike Williams walk. Like, who is Justin Herbert going to have around him?
I think what Jim Harbaugh wants to do is get a lot of players to the draft because as a Michigan coach, he's gonna get the same advantage as like Pete Carroll did when he went to the NFL. Like he's gonna dominate the draft.
That's a good point. I guess he wants to rebuild the team in his own image, but you don't want to waste Justin Herbert either.
No.
And letting Keenan Allen walk is an interesting decision. Now I know he's injury prone, but Chicago now has him and DJ Moore. So Caleb Williams being paired with that is going to be super fascinating. And they can draft a 3rd wide receiver, probably like a Rome Odunze, I think. So, I mean, Chicago's going to be good, I think, on offense. Now, they'll come to their offensive line. If the offensive line can be good, if the line can be good, I like the Bears a lot. At least as a young, exciting team.
Yeah, I can see the Bears having a decent season.
Yeah, I think that'll be more fun to watch. It depends on how good Caleb Williams is, though. I have my serious questions, but he's probably more NFL ready than anyone else. I mean, Jane Daniels, maybe. could be as good. I have my doubts about Drake May. Certainly JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy, I think he's gonna go to the Chargers. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, I'll get him as a backup quarterback.
Well, JJ McCarthy's probably going to be gone before the top 10 picks. So, because there's so many teams desperate for a quarterback. So, in any case, it's going to be fascinating to watch. Some other notes here, some kind of more serious notes in the NFL. Dak Prescott under investigation from Dallas police. So a woman filed a complaint alleging that Prescott assaulted her in the back of an SUV 7 years ago. However, Prescott has countersued, claiming that he's being extorted for $100 million by the woman and her attorneys. So we're kind of a back and forth legal situation there between the two. And the fact that we have a 7-year difference makes me very suspicious of these claims.
Yeah, like why right now?
Yeah, and obviously, you got to hear out, claims and stuff, and you got to let it play for the legal process. But then we have to remember you can't convict someone based off a claim. You have to let it play out. But this one definitely raises my suspicions levels a lot. I don't see this affecting Dak on at least Dak's eligibility on the field.
No, me too.
Additionally, Tyreek Hill. Back a few weeks ago, he had an alleged domestic dispute in January where Miami police, the Miami Herald reported that he had gotten into a fight with his wife of just 2 months, where he apparently had filed a divorce after getting married to her 2 months ago. And apparently she claimed that she was bullied, threatened, and verbally harassed, and alleged that Hill smashed an unlit cigar in her face. So, and of course, remember that home did catch on fire at one point. And Tyreek Hill has a history. Back when he was at Oklahoma State, he assaulted his pregnant girlfriend at the time, at least allegedly. There is a history there with Tyreek Hill. This, I'm more likely to believe.
Yeah, isn't he has many children from different women? He has some troubles.
Yeah, he's kind of like a younger Antonio Brown a little bit, which is unfortunate because, I don't want him to go down that path. I want him to clean up because, he's such an amazing wide receiver talent, but at the same time, man, you can't be out here hitting women. That's unacceptable. You have, and this is true, he needs to suffer some consequences and go get some help because clearly there's some serious mental issues there if this is true. So we'll have to wait and see how that undergoes. Additionally, our good friend Aaron Rodgers, we're still waiting whether or not to hear he's going to be the vice presidential candidate for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the independent presidential candidate. But what's interesting is CNN released an article last week after the news broke talking about him and Sandy Hook, alleging that he believed that Sandy Hook was a hoax. Now, he came out and denied this, saying, I've never said such a thing. There were videos that surfaced in the aftermath of him talking about, hey, we need to raise money for these victims. I certainly don't believe that this is true, but it's interesting to me that that Aaron Rodgers is being targeted as a serious political candidate here. Because I don't think RFK is
he got involved. If there's an athlete that got into topics that were in politics in the last 4 years, is Aaron Rodgers. So, he has been involved, but the question is, is this for real or is just taking a chance to see if it lands and then maybe he'll ditch football?
Yeah. I want to say Colorado Boise State has begun. And that matchup, that winner will play Florida in Dayton. So I do want to mention that I think RFK is announcing his VP next Tuesday. So we'll know once and for all whether or not A-Rod will be be a vice presidential candidate, and whether or not he'll try to play football through that, which I certainly, for us, I think is the most interesting factor. Because let's be real, I don't think RFK is winning the presidency unless something just insane happens. Uh, a little bit of MLB talk here. Shohei Ohtani. We've got some baseball coming up soon. The regular season starts in the next few weeks. Um, but the Los Angeles Dodgers, in their first year of Ohtani, has fired an interpreter for Ohtani after he allegedly stole $4.5 million of wire transfers from his bank account, from Otani's bank account, to his own bookmaking operation to gamble.
Yeah, it's hard to trust people, especially when because he is naive. Like you can tell by the way he talks, the way he you know acts, and I feel like he you know definitely got screwed. I glad at least he caught early. He didn't let this get for a long time.
Oh, yes, and hopefully he's able to prevent further issues moving down the road, especially with this being a huge year for him. He's finally on a contender for the first time. You don't want to see stuff like this happen.
And
NASCAR was in. Oh, go ahead.
oh, and before that, today was the unofficial opening day because the season started today. Like there's a game that counted through the season
Yeah,
because
yeah, there's a Soul Series, right?
yeah, the game in Seoul, South Korea, and Shohei Ohtani got his first RBI as the Dodgers, and the LA Dodgers beat the Padres 5-2. So the Dodgers are the best team in baseball right now because I guess, they only won. So the season unofficially it started because I guess with this game counting through the season, then you can say the season started, even though all the other teams are through spring training. The Braves got the win today, 10-9 at Cool Today Park, place we've been there in January.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to be real. I had no idea that the season actually started today. So, okay, that's what happens when you put a game at 6 a.m. Like, who's going to be able to watch that?
And I guess it makes sense. Definitely, it was a good move for the MLB to do regular season games in Asia, especially with so many stars, and you know, it, especially with Otani being one of the great stars. But I don't know, like this could have why I don't understand why this just could be for a spring training. Like, why did it have to count for the season? Or I don't know, because it takes all the magic off the opening day. Like I don't know what you think about it, but because now it's not real opening day because the season already started.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know if the majority of people even noticed it happened. I didn't even notice it happened. I feel like most people had no idea because I've
Yeah,
heard no one talk about it.
that's why it takes away all the pleasure of opening your season. Like I guess it's fair what the MLB did, the CO series, but it should have been for either a preseason matchup, which it's fair to do it overseas, or you do later in the year. You just don't put a regular season game when there's still spring train going. At least for my
Oh, for
opinion.
sure. Of course, the real opening day is next Thursday across the league. So, you know,
So
in any
tomorrow
case,
is But tomorrow's game 2 of the 2024 MLB season because the sale series continues. And tickets are going for $315. I bet that's going to be the record for a regular season baseball like ticket.
oh yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me. I mean, South Korea baseball in South Korea and Japan is huge.
Oh, definitely. It's huge.
Yeah. Real quick here, got some Bristol NASCAR recap. Very interesting race. I mean, we had extreme tire wear in this race, which we haven't seen in a very long time. It was very old school. You had to manage your tires, or otherwise they would blow up and you would be done. Um, Denny Hamlin, a veteran, was able to win this one, showing his car control and very impressive win. Fifth different winner in 5 races, which is crazy. That playoff field, which is only 16 drivers, is filling up quickly. We still have 21 races left in the regular season. This week we have the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Road course, first road course of the year. Interested to see if there's been any changes to that package this year. And it's going to be a very interesting race, I think. I really like that track. Very technical. I know it's mostly an M1, a Formula One track, but honestly, I like the NASCAR races a little bit better. Additionally, we are now in the quarterfinals of CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Oh yeah, that's true. And after Nashville was eliminated, that's sad. But Inter Miami uh, are playing I guess tomorrow. No, I guess gonna be next week actually. Actually, this week was for the US Open Cup actually, and we had some sad news for Chattanooga. They were eliminated at home against Miami United. They lost at home 1-0. So that was kind of a shocker.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the magic that was there a few years ago has not um, sustained itself for CFC.
Yeah, and this matchup was interesting because it was a rematch of the 2016 NPSL um, Southeast Championship. Um, the One Ox was able to advance to the second round 2-0 over Asheville City. The game was in the city of Asheville, so it was hard place to win it, but they got the W. And tomorrow, I believe, tomorrow actually, the other Chattanooga team get onto the field at home at Central High School against Brockton.
Wait, they're playing at Central High School?
Yes, it says
Why are they
Central High
playing?
School.
Because that's literally like the high school. That's literally like 5 minutes up the road from where I'm at.
Yeah, it's Central High School. It says here Chattanooga at home plays Brockton at Central High School.
That's it. Because I'm seeing. Let's see, what day is it? The 20.
20 today. Tomorrow is the 21st.
I was like, 'cause I don't see it on there. That says home opener is March 30th.
No, but that's the US Open Cup.
Let me see that. Because now I'm curious. Because that I'm confused why they would play versus Brockton.
No, they play for the first round of the
Yeah.
US Open Cup. That's not the regular
Oh yeah, I see what you're
season,
saying. Yeah, Thursday, March 21st, 7:30 p.m. at
like
Central
the
High.
for the the USL.
That's really cool. So tickets are going to be $10
Yeah, so it's
at adventure, $12 at the gate. Students, season tickets will receive complimentary admission.
yeah, so it's a US Open Cup tomorrow in Central High School for
Okay.
Chattanooga.
Yeah, so Chad Memorial Stadium, they replaced synthetic turf with natural grass. So the grass isn't ready yet.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, for this first round, I guess it's fair for to have the kind of accommodation. So,
Yeah, I legitimately had no idea that they were going to play tomorrow at Central High School.
yeah. But it said, even, for me, with what it said is that the MLS is out. I think I still can't get to my mind that the MLS, the real MLS team, not the second teams, are not playing the US Open Cup. I think that's ridiculous. At first, it kind of, makes you more divided as a league, you know, as a whole for like a U.S. Soccer Confederation, but they are franchise. They are a league, so they have decisions on their own. Like they have a commissioner.
Yeah, and MLS apparently is just here to make every single grassroots soccer fan mad
Yeah,
in the U.S.
but yeah, but I guess for the Concacaf Champions League, they're gonna return after the FIFA break. So we are on a FIFA break, both for Brazil and US. So let's shift to Brazil. We had the playoffs for the state championships and some upsets. Even though, and so since we are in March and we're gonna talk about upsets in basketball, there were in soccer as well. Like Vasco da Gama in front of 62,000 fans in Maracanã lost 1-0 to Nova Iguaçu. Did you know how much is the comparing like roster, like for example, like the uh, I don't know what's the term, like the amount of the total amount of money that costs for your
Oh, the
roster, like
payroll. The payroll.
payroll. That's the word I wanted to remember. So comparing payrolls, the payroll for Nova Iguaçu is 100,000 reais. Vasco da Gama has a 20 million reais payroll.
Oh, wow. It's
So
not. It's
that
not a
makes
lot.
even harder. So that makes it even harder. So like uh so uh, um so Nova Iguaçu has a $20,000 payroll and Vasco da Gama has
So like, I'm sure most of these players are having to work like other jobs to make ends meet.
sort of like not really. They can, I guess they are like a two, like a three to I'll say it's like a double minimum wage, like a minimum wage and a half to double the monthly minimum wage. But it was funny that the goalkeeper, who literally played one of the best matches of his life, left the stadium on a subway, like left the stadium and went home on on a subway ride. Like everybody was talking about, like, because you normally associate players having fancy cars, and not using public transportation, but it was funny that. And they're gonna face Flamengo, the eliminated Fluminense. Of course, Flamengo under Tite has been really good. They're gonna be the favorites, but Nova Iguaçu has nothing to lose, so that is gonna be the V versus Goliath. I think is interesting. And down here in the state of Sao Paulo, São Paulo FC also was eliminated at home, so against Novo Horizontino. So that was another upset. Palmeiras and Santos take care of business, even though Santos needed to win on penalty kicks, and Palmeiras won 5-1. And Bragantino, Red Bull Bragantino, also made it to another semifinal. So it's going to be Bragantino and Santos at Corinthians Stadium. So that was shocking. So Santos are going to play at Corinthians Stadium because they have more capacity, so they can make more revenue in terms of tickets, which is fair. But it's still weird to see Santos play in a major rival stadium. But because there's a lot of Santos fans in the city of Sao Paulo, and Itaquera is an easy stadium to arrive, but Santos also made a partnership with the stadium of Pacaembu. So when Pacaembu is finally re-inaugurated, they're gonna play there a couple of games later in the year. And the other semifinal is gonna be Palmeiras and Novo Horizontino. So it feels
I'm
like
thinking Palmeiras and Bragantino to me for the finals.
Palmeiras and Bragantino. I'll take Palmeiras and Santos. I think Santos is a team that definitely needs the title the most. They've just been relegated to the second division in the Brazil National Championship. They haven't won a title since 2016, so I think I'll pick Santos to get to the finals against Palmeiras. I think Santos needs the title the most.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun for Santos. I mean, they need as you said, they need the momentum because last year between the death of Pele and getting relegated, which is a disaster, and they're a
Yeah,
bunch.
last Yeah, they're rebuilding, so I think winning a state championship will definitely continue this rebuilding momentum. Down here in Americana, my beloved Rio Branco had a really, really tough match against Kings de Jaú, but we got the W 2-0. And Rio Branco right now are going to share the screen, are in sixth place. And
I would say
so
so. How do you say this team's name? So it's Kings of Juliu.
is 15 of Jaú, which is a city, in honor because they were founded on the 15th of November. So a lot of teams were
Interesting.
founded. in the fifth in the November 15. So it says, and the XZ is because of the Roman numbers.
Interesting. So I guess that's like an Independence Day. Okay, excuse me. I
The
feel like
Republic Day. Republic Day.
okay, interesting. Because I saw that
Republic.
team name, and I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, it meant 15 of Jau, which is the city where they are, and 15 because they are founded on Republic Day on 15th of November 1924. So they're celebrating 100 years this year.
You
But
know,
they
what I
couldn't
find
get.
interesting is like if Rio Branco hadn't blown it to Unibarbarense, they would be out of the top eight right now.
Yeah, that's what hurts. No, what hurts the most is that if Rio Branco got the win against, remember, Jabaquara, which right now is in 15th place, if Rio Branco would have won that game, Rio Branco would have been in third place.
Right. But I mean, they're only 5 points behind. Because didn't I think it was Sour Carolense? They blow out Rio Branco.
No, they won against Rio Branco, but they won 7-0 against Union Barbarense. Union Barbarense changed their coach and went to the coach they fired last year, Tonio Cobra. So they fired their coach and hire a coach they fired last year. That's
Well, how do they
funny.
think that's going to work?
I mean, it worked today. They won 4-0 at home against Independente of Limeira. I know Independente is in the bottom, but it worked for today. And Rio Branco are gonna face Joseense on the road. Practically, it's gonna be a neutral game because they're gonna play in the city of Guaratinguetá. So they're playing another city because in the city where they are, the stadium rent is so expensive right now. So they are playing in another city that is 40 minutes away. So
Ah, man.
basically going to be a neutral game. Rio Branco should take care of business and win, and to continue at least to if Rio Branco wins and some of the results happen, Rio Branco might be at least guaranteed in the quarterfinals. But I still believe Rio Branco can be at least in third and fourth place to get the advantage in the quarterfinals to have two equal results and to have the second game at home.
Absolutely. And how many more games do y'all have at this point?
Two,
Wow.
two, two games,
For two more
two
games
games.
left. So you just have to at least. So you're 4 points ahead. If you win this next game, you're automatically in
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the
If
knockout.
Roberto wins, they are qualified. If they won two games, I really hope they can get into the top four as well. Uh, other news in sport in soccer. So Libertadores group draw was this week. So I think all the Brazilian teams got really easy group. Fluminense, the current champion, is in the Group A with Alianza Lima of Peru, Colo Colo of Chile, and Cerro Porteño of Paraguay. São Paulo, the Brazilian Cup champion, in the Group B with Tajeres of Argentina, Cobresal of Chile, and Barcelona of Guayaquil from Ecuador. Group C has Grêmio playing against the strongest of Bolivia, Estudiantes of Argentina, and Huachipato from Peru. Group D has Botafogo. I think Botafogo is in the hardest group with LEDU of Ecuador that play in high altitude, Universitario of Peru, and Junior Barranquilla of Colombia. Group E has Flamengo, easy group. Flamengo should fly in this group. Bolivar of Bolivia, Millonarios of Colombia, and Palestino of Chile. Palmeiras in the group F. Uh, it's a tricky group. I think they can. They're gonna be the favorites, but it's not gonna be easy. Group Palmeiras in with Independiente del Valle of Ecuador, Liverpool of Uruguay, and San Lorenzo of Argentina. Atlético Mineiro, that fired their coach Felipão, is in the group G, along with Caracas of Venezuela, Peñarol of Uruguay, and Rosario Central of Argentina. And Group H has no Brazilians in it. The is it River Plate, Libertad, Nacional of Uruguay, and Deportivo Táchira of Venezuela. So I think out of those groups, I can see, for example, Group A, Fluminense and Fluminense is going to be first place. São Paulo, I think, first, maybe second. Grêmio first place. Botafogo, I think is going to be the hardest. I think it's going to be second place, but they're gonna probably going to get some worries. Flamengo slide in first place. Palmeiras first place. So I think all Brazilian teams in Libertadores group stage should take care of business. In Sul-Americana, which is the South American version of Europa League, Corinthians. So the Brazilians are so there are Brazilians in Group B, Cruzeiro playing against Alianza Petroleira, Universidade de Quito, and União La Calera. Corinthians is Group F. It's going to be a tough group for, I think so. I think with Racing of Uruguay, Nacional of Paraguay, and Argentino Juniors of Argentina, and on Bragantino also in the Sul-Americana in the group of Coquimbo Unido, Racing, and Sporting Luqueño. Just to close up soccer, so there's a little bit of controversy with the American owner of Botafogo, John Textor. He said last week that there were some allegations and there were some match fixing and some manipulation of matches. And the sports court in Brazil are gonna make denounce they're gonna move to prosecute John Texter this week because he refused to give the sports court proof that about corruption involving referees.
It's so American, isn't it? Like
Oh
we're gonna go
yeah,
into another country's league and we're gonna sue immediately.
yeah. No, no. He's not suing. He's being kind of indicted for the sports court is indicting him because he said that he has proof of corruption and match fixing by referees, but he refused to give the proof. So they're like, so you're damaging the image of soccer in Brazil. So actually, let me. So he's gonna be indicted in the articles 220A and 223. That is not collaborating with the sports justice court, and the other one is not complying or delaying the decision of the court. So he's indicted in 2 counts by the sports court. He can be punished with a suspension from 90 to 360 days and a fine of 100,000 reais. So that's the case. But I think at the end of the day, John Textor, for me, this shows that he is still bitter about Botafogo losing the Brazilian Championship, and he's trying to find some sort of a cope mechanism. And also, I think he has to understand that Brazil works very different from America in a lot of standpoints. He can, and I think this maybe injure like damage Botafogo image in the long run. I think he was a little bit premature to do that, and especially not showing real proof of something so like damaging.
I mean, it's a very bold move, but I mean, I think in terms of Americans' images across the world, I mean, we kind of haven't we gained a little bit of a reputation for being a happy Sioux culture, a little bit, and obviously, maybe not accepting losses,
Yeah.
um, which we kind of have a bad habit of that.
Yeah, we'll
So
see what happens. I mean, Botafogo is doing well this season, but definitely Botafogo is in a spotlight for the wrong reasons. That's for sure.
absolutely, it's going to be a distraction. That's for sure.
Yeah, it can be, especially on the backstage of Brazilian soccer. A lot of commissioners and president of clubs are gonna look him in the maybe a little bit of different.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, here's going to give one last score update. Boise State, Colorado, 13-12. Broncos with 8 minutes left in the first half. It's another low-scoring game, both doing a heartwarming tribute to Virginia. So I feel better with the Florida picks. So In any case, that's all the time that we have for episode 122. It is that March Madness edition. Hopefully, our boys and ladies in orange are still alive this time next week when we come back to you for the second week of March Madness, opening week of MLB, going spring practice, and everything else that our wonderful countries of Brazil and America have to offer in terms of sports. But for Gus Tomazeli down in Sao Paulo, Brazil, I am Nicholas Hill here in Tennessee of the United States. And you've been watching Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Have a good one.